Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I'm going to break down the first 14 episodes of the Sailor Moon Crystal series that covers the first arc known as the Dark Kingdom. I'm going to compare and go over how well the new anime stayed true to the manga. I will not be making too many references to the original series, as that series is over 200 episodes long, and the producers have already stated that this Crystal series is not a remake of the original series, but a reboot to follow the manga. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about it. One of the first things I noticed is each episode title is the same as the chapters in the manga as well. They're doing already a good job of staying true to the manga. And with that, Act 1 is called Usagi Sailor Moon. The episode opens up giving us a view of space, and then we see a female running towards someone, and then they go in for a kiss, but the screen turns white. And then it turns out that this is a dream that Usagi is having. Then we open up to what is exactly in the manga, but I think this actually pays more homage to the original anime as well. Usagi is a 14-year-old girl just trying to get by in her everyday teenage life. She's running late to school, and Usagi is voiced by the Japanese voice actress Kotono Mitsuishi, who is reprising her role as Usagi. Kotono Mitsuishi is also known for Boa Hancock from One Piece, as well as Misato from Neon Genesis Evangelion, along with many other roles. And the English voice is done by Stephanie Sheh. Stephanie Sheh is well known for Hinata from Naruto, as well as Orihime from Bleach. And then we get to see the brand new opening sung by Mamoru Clover Z called Moon Pride, and it's composed by Akiko Kosaka, who helped compose the original Sailor Moon series. When Usagi is on her way to school, she accidentally steps on a cat, and just like the manga, she weirdly kisses the cat. She does help the cat take off the bandage off her head, and then we see the moon crescent on her forehead. And then Usagi heads straight to school. It looks like now we get an extra scene of Jadeite summoning a creature, but outside of that, so far, it's pretty true to the manga. Now, in the anime, they expanded some of these conversations that she has at school. Usagi is an everyday teenager just living her life day to day, trying to get by in school and struggles with her grades. She learns about the crime fighter Sailor V, who is stopping armed robbers from stealing jewelry from local jewelry shops. They also added the scene where Usagi goes and her friends go to their mom's jewelry shop. Just like in the manga, she throws her test and it lands on a guy in a tuxedo's head. And the dialogue in this episode is word for what was in the manga. This is her first encounter with Mamoru, who is Tuxedo Mask, and his English voice is done by Robbie Damon, who is best known for Megumi from Jujutsu Kaisen and Goro Akechi from Persona 5. His Japanese voice is done by Kenji Nojima. He's best known for Sho in the 2005's Guyver. Even the arcade scene of her playing Sailor Moon V, all the way to Usagi taking a nap instead of studying in this episode, is like panel for panel from the manga. Luna wakes up Sailor Moon and begins to speak to Usagi. For Luna's English voice, she's played by Michelle Ruff, who is best known for Rukia from Bleach, as well as Yoko from Gurren Lagann, and so much more. The Japanese voice is done by Ryo Hirohashi, who is well known for Minata from My Hero Academia, as well as Tails for the Japanese dubbing of the Sonic movies and the games. Luna explains to Usagi that she is the chosen one to handle the strange things that have been going on in Tokyo that the police can't handle. She is the chosen guardian, and her mission is to find the other guardians to fight the evil in Tokyo, as well as finding their princess. Usagi then transforms with the guidance of Luna into Sailor Moon, and then we get to see the not so popular 3D animation that was heavily criticized. In the manga, when she transforms, she's actually shown more in Naoko Takeuchi's original design for Sailor Moon with the glasses, but in the anime they did not have her wear them, although that would have been cool to see. In the manga, she was able to see her friend Naru being attacked, but in the anime it is her little hair pieces and her buns that help warn her. When Usagi arrives, the scene plays out page by page in the manga. Luna helps her by looking up at the moon to come up with her name, Sailor Moon. When Sailor Moon is surrounded by the zombified civilians, she cries out and ends up nullifying everyone from being able to move. Tuxedo Mask then tells her to stop crying and to take out the enemy while she can. Luna tells her how to use her tiara for battle, and Sailor Moon defeats the enemy. Moving on to Act 2, Amy, Sailor Mercury. So the episode starts off not exactly page by page, but it's still hitting the same points. We see the smartest girl in the school getting hundreds on her exams, but then we see what is in the manga of Jadeite getting scolded by Queen Beryl for not finding the silver crystal. It is also explained that Jadeite is commander of the Far East. Queen Beryl's English voice is done by Sydney Robinson, who is best known for Amy Rose from the Sonic games, or Mikhail from Drakengard 3, and also Kukaka Shiba from Bleach. Her Japanese voice is done by Misa Watanabe, who is best known for Vivi from One Piece. Jadeite's English voice is done by Todd Habercorn, and he is best known for Natsu from Fairy Tail or Haruka from Free. His Japanese voice is done by Daisuke Kishio, who is best known for Loki from Fairy Tail or Jace and Kaba from the Dragon Ball Z series. Luna and Usagi are having their conversation about the evil that they have to face, as well as who could potentially be the other guardians. Then back at school, Usagi and her friends are discussing Ami and how she goes to cram school, and eventually we come across Luna jumping down from a tree and jumping on Ami. And Usagi and Ami finally meet, and they did another great job of staying true to the manga. Ami is played by Kate Higgins, who is well known for Sakura from Naruto or C2 from Code Geass. Ami's Japanese dubbing is done by Hisako Kanemoto, who has a wide variety of characters that she's played over the years. Usagi invites Ami to the arcade, and we see Ami show off her skills and she beats the Sailor V game. And when she won, a prize came out of the machine. Both her and Usagi got pens from the machine. Ami explains that she wants to be a doctor like her mother, so that's why she goes to cram school to study. And when Ami goes to cram school, we see the teacher hand out discs to all the students, and it turns out the discs are brainwashing these students. When Usagi learns about the school brainwashing the kids, Luna tells Usagi that she can use her new pen to disguise herself to get into the school. Now, this battle is played out a bit different in the manga. Usagi in the anime is getting her butt handed to her, and Ami then transforms to help save Sailor Moon. Sailor Mercury does her attack Aqua Mist and fogs up the room. Sailor Moon can't break free, but Tuxedo Mask saves her, and Sailor Moon uses her tiara to defeat the enemy. Now, in the manga, it is a less eventful battle. Ami is being held by the enemy, and then her pen starts to glow. Luna tells her to raise up her pen, and then a fog appears everywhere. Sailor Moon is almost attacked by the enemy, but Tuxedo Mask pulls her back and she kicks the monster. Then she finishes it off with her moon tiara. Then the fog clears and we see Sailor Mercury. Act 3, Ray, Sailor Mars. We see Queen Beryl's not happy with Jadeite that he has failed twice. But then we get our first appearance of Nephrite. Now I noticed they are skipping the locations that each of them command over. For example, in the manga, Nephrite explains that he is commander of North America. It's nothing major to be honest, but it was just something that I noticed. Nephrite is also voiced by Liam O'Brien for the English dub. He's best known for Gaara from Naruto or Vice from the Nier franchise. Also, can't forget his work in Critical Role. His Japanese voice is done by Kosuke Toriumi, who is well known for Junpei from Persona 3 franchise and Chiba from Naruto. We also get an appearance from Zoisite, and his English voice is done by Lucian Dodge, and he is known for Mahito from Jujutsu Kaisen, as well as Akaza from Demon Slayer. His Japanese voice is done by Masaya Matsukaze, who is best known for Ryo from the Shenmue series. They are discussing what the Silver Moon Crystal is, and whoever wields it will become the ruler of the universe. And I kind of already appreciate the fact that they're just looking for the crystal. Back in the 90s series, they were looking for these rainbow crystals, and then when the rainbow crystals combine, that's when they formed the Silver Moon Crystal, which took a lot of time. Then we get our first look at Rei. Her English voice is done by Christina V, and she is best known as Killua from Hunter x Hunter and Ladybug from Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir. My personal favorite roles that she's done was Velvet from Tales of Berseria. Her Japanese voice is done by Rina Sato, who plays Makoto from Persona 5, and also Velvet from Tales of Berseria. So that's a funny coincidence. There is a rumor about a demon bus that anyone riding the bus at 6 p.m. goes missing. When Ami and Usagi get on the bus, they see Rei. When Rei looks over at them, she gets a vision of the Moon Kingdom. Ami had the same vision in the last episode as well. In the manga, Amy actually gets off the bus before Usagi does, but it still plays out the same. Usagi is following Rei, but then loses Rei, and then Luna points out that she may have gone up to the shrine. All of a sudden we see Rei detects an evil spirit and throws a charm, and it hits Usagi. Usagi was also being attacked by Phobos and Deimos. Phobos and Deimos are named after the planet Mars' two moons. Phobos and Deimos were also twin sons of the Greek god Ares, also called Mars, and Aphrodite, also called Venus. They find out that the child went missing, and it looks like that child took the demon bus. Rei explains that there is a crossroad of sorts that opens a gateway, and she explains that when you go missing, it's called Spirited Away, which this is the same conversation they have in the manga. Now, crossroads in different folklore can represent a location between worlds. Luna thinks that Rei is potentially the princess. In the anime, Usagi actually stands up for Rei when the adults come to pester her, but in the manga, Rei immediately asks them to leave. Rei gets a vision that Usagi is being attacked by Jadeite, and she runs after Usagi, but instead Jadeite actually captures Rei, and Usagi saw this and then chases after the bus. Also in this episode, Jadeite talks about how he feels like he recognizes Rei. They are teleported to another place, and Usagi goes in to rescue Rei. Once Sailor Moon transforms, that gives Ami the ability to teleport to Sailor Moon. In the manga, we see yet again Sailor Moon's wearing her original design with the glasses, but it is what it is. The fight is played out a little bit longer in the anime compared to the manga. Rei actually comes in to help them fight off Jadeite. Sailor Moon uses her tiara to hold Jadeite still, and that's when Sailor Mars deals the final blow, which kills Jadeite in the manga. But in this episode, Jadeite escapes. Act 4 Masquerade Dance Party. So I thought this was interesting. In both the manga and this episode, you'll see Usagi's mom looking at the newspaper, and you see Sailor Moon during her fight with Jadeite from the last episode. But my question is, how is this picture there? We're just gonna have it there with no explanation? Alright, I'm moving on. There is a party for Princess D and her secret treasure. So when we get to the girls meeting up at the arcade, you get a small discussion about how Usagi has already, in a way, started to change these girls' lives outside of the Sailor Scouts. Ami and Rei were both stuck in their day-to-day lives, keeping to themselves, and now they get to enjoy the small things like going to the arcade and playing games together. You can see both of them had to adjust, and I like that the anime touched on this a little bit. Now in the manga, Rei is super reluctant and is a little more vocal about not sure if she wants to help out with being a Sailor Scout. She talks about how she's a busy woman and wants Luna to explain who she is and where she came from. Otherwise, she can't help. Luna explains that she can't tell them because they won't believe her. They talk about how they do not have much information on the monsters that they are fighting, and Ami asks, how are we supposed to fight these monsters if we don't know who they are? She asks then, isn't that why we became Sailor Guardians in the first place, to fight these monsters? And Luna explains that their actual role is to protect their princess. That is their primary role as guardians. She explains that the princess has been sealed with potentially the silver crystal. Luna explains once they're all together again with the Sailor Scouts, they will awaken, and so will the princess. Now we see Jadeite walking around, but actually in the manga, Rei killed him in the previous chapter. But now we're introduced to Kunzite, who is played by Patrick Seitz for the English dub. Patrick Seitz is well known for Frankie from One Piece or Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. His Japanese voice is Eiji Takemoto, who played Kui in Dragon Ball Z. Now that we see all four of them, Queen Beryl calls them her four kings of heaven. Usagi disguises herself to get into the ball. Rei thinks that the princess is in danger, so they need to find the princess. The ball is underway, and we see Tuxedo Mask and Usagi have their dance, just like in the manga, and they share that they wanted to see each other again, which was cute. In the anime, Neferi actually makes a physical appearance, whereas in the manga, he's back in the lair controlling the monster from afar. The creature appears taking over Princess D's body and steals the crystal. When Sailor Moon transforms, she gets a new tiara just like in the manga. This tiara was not in the original series. Just like in the manga, she uses the tiara and her new ability, Moon Twilight Flash, and destroys the shadow of Nephrite. Just when the real Nephrite appears, so do the rest of the four Kings of Heavens. They're introducing themselves to the Scouts, and they vow that they will get the legendary crystal for the Dark Kingdom. Act 5, Makoto, Sailor Jupiter. We get our first look at Makoto. She is played by Bennett Abara, formerly known as Amanda Miller in English. She is well known for playing Boruto Uzumaki, or even Junko from the Danganronpa games. Her Japanese voice is done by Amy Koshimizu, who is best known for Holo from Spice and Wolf, or Colin from Code Geass. In this episode, we see more of the loneliness that Makoto and all the school kids are talking about her. We saw a similar thing with the other scouts as well. Ami and Rei were also shown as isolated and alone for being different. But here comes Usagi to find Makoto outside eating alone. They start bonding over their lunch. You see Makoto has the same vision that Rei and Ami did of the Moon Kingdom. There is a rumor about a haunted bridal shop. One of the mannequins comes to life and charms men, and then the men go missing. Motoki, the guy who runs the arcade, ends up getting trapped by one of these brides. Motoki ends up trying to trap Makoto as well, but Mamoru notices it and gets Usagi to save Makoto. In the manga, Usagi disguises herself as a groom, which even in the manga, I thought that was kind of random, but they skip that and just go straight to the scouts transforming to fight. Nephrite also makes an appearance, and there is a bit of extra dialogue with Makoto and Sailor Moon. Makoto is losing her faith in love, and Usagi snaps her out of it and tells her to continue to believe in love, which makes me think of the old Sailor Moon movies with that song The Power of Love. of. Makoto, just like in the manga, throws the monster and then transforms into Sailor Jupiter. When Sailor Jupiter releases her Jupiter Thunderbolt, she actually kills Nephrite in the manga, but in this episode, he escapes. But before he does, he looks at Jupiter and says that he feels like he remembers her. At the end of the episode, Luna gives Sailor Moon her Moon Wand and tells Sailor Moon that she is the leader of the Sailor Scouts. And then the next episode is Act 6, Tuxedo Mask. Tuxedo Mask is showing up on the news saying that he was behind all the mysterious attacks and that he's looking for the silver crystal. This time, Zoisite will take on the Scouts. And in the manga, he explains that he is commander of Europe. Luna explains to the Scouts that she is from the moon and that they need to protect the princess who is also from the moon. She also explains how dangerous the silver crystal is if it got into enemies' hands. In the manga, Usagi notices that the Sailor V game, Sailor V is using the Moon Wand just like what Usagi got in the last episode. But in the anime, you actually hear Sailor V say something to Usagi. She tells her that Sailor Moon can do this and that she has to believe in herself. Then the girls talk about what if Sailor V is the last scout, but they have no idea where she is. She hasn't been in the news for a while. Then there was a broadcast that was shown all throughout Tokyo, and anyone who watched the broadcast on the silver crystal became brainwashed and they went crazy looking for the crystal. In the manga, for a moment, Usagi looked like she was impacted as well. Then we started to see people faint throughout the city, and Ami is almost about to faint as well, but she finds Luna and then gets to the arcade. That is when Luna reveals that she has a secret supercomputer hidden in the arcade. In the anime, the girls are already together when she opens up the computer room. In the manga, Luna and Amy figure out that the dark signal is coming from the TV station tower. In the anime, Usagi is upset that the girls and Luna are talking about how Tuxedo Mask could be their enemy, and she runs off. Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter go on their own to find Zoisite by themselves. When they find him, they successfully stop him and the signal from draining life energy from people in Tokyo. Then we see Usagi get ready to faint and Tuxedo Mask catches her. In the manga, he does find her unconscious and wakes her up. He explains that this outcome wasn't what he was intending when he wanted to find more information about the crystal. Now back in the anime, Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter are fighting Zoisite, and this isn't anything like what happened in the manga. When they confront him in the manga, he immediately ran away. Queen Beryl actually makes an appearance as well in this episode, and she explains who she is and what the Dark Kingdom's goal is. When it jumps back to Sailor Moon, she's having self-doubt, just like in the manga. I like this though for the episode. Tuxedo Mask tells her that her powers are special, that she sees the other Guardians for who they are, and then she transforms and she goes to her team to rescue them. She uses her Moon Wand and attacks Queen Beryl, but Zoisite blocks it and Queen Beryl takes her leave. And then Usagi uses her power of healing to save the people. Now in the manga, there is no fight with Queen Beryl. Sailor Moon just uses her power to save everyone in the city. Now we go on to Act 7, Mamoru, Chiba, Tuxedo Mask. Tuxedo Mask explains that he has lost his memories at the age of 6. He lost his parents in a car accident as well, and he keeps having this dream of a girl telling him to find the legendary silver crystal, and that is why he's looking for it. We get our first look at Queen Metalia, and she's actually played by, I think, a legend in English voice acting. It is Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, and she's well known for playing Major Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. Her Japanese voice actress is played by Yoko Matsuoko, who is known for Lady Alvida from One Piece. Now this conversation between Queen Metalia and Queen Beryl, it happens a little bit differently in the manga, but it's ultimately the same thing. But what is different is we get the backstory of how Queen Beryl discovered Queen Metalia, and then Queen Beryl admits that she will not hand over the crystal to Metalia. Ray comes across the Dark Rental Store, and okay, who came up with that name? All of a sudden we see people just talking about Sailor Moon, and when the girls are at school, even their classmates are going crazy about finding Sailor Moon first. Usagi realizes that she has Tuxedo Mask's watch, and in this episode, that took her forever to find. The moment she had left his apartment in the manga, she noticed it right away. And then in this episode, we see a moment as well with Mamoru with Usagi's handkerchief. Now the funny thing is, in the manga, because it was done back in the 90s, they all have VHS tapes from the Dark Rental Store, but in the anime, it's upgraded DVDs. It's the same for when Ami was looking up Sailor V on a tablet, but in the manga, it was this bulky laptop. It turns out that Zoisite is brainwashing the people and having them look for Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon uses her ability of moon healing escalation to heal everyone, and when she does that, Zoisite goes in for the strike. Now in this episode, Tuxedo Mask comes to save her, but in the manga, he actually wasn't able to get near Zoisite or Sailor Moon. But we see that force field that was blocking Tuxedo Mask in the manga when in the anime he goes for his second strike. And Zoisite captures Sailor Moon again. Tuxedo Mask is basically confessing his love for Usagi. When Zoisite goes in for another strike, another cat stops him, and then he's attacked by someone else, and we see it is Sailor V. But in the manga, that attack actually does kill Zoisite. And with this episode, episode, we're actually done with Volume 1, and specifically the Eternal edition of the manga, and now we move on to Volume 2. Act 8, Minako, Sailor V. We're now introduced to Sailor V and Artemis. Sailor V's English voice is done by Jeremy Lee, who is well known for Lucy from Fairy Tail, A2 and Nier Automata, both the game and the anime, and then V from Cyberpunk, and so much more. Her Japanese voice is done by Shizuka Ito, who is known for Akino from High School DxD, and she actually played the Japanese voice for Ahsoka Tano from the Star Wars franchise. And then we have Artemis, and his English voice is done by Johnny Young Bosch, who is well known for Ichigo from Bleach, Lelouch from Code Geass, as well as Nero from the Devil May Cry series. His Japanese voice is done by Yohei Abayashi, who has played Noboru from Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V series. Artemis explaining to the girls that Sailor V is also Princess Serenity of the Moon Kingdom. Just like in the manga, Sailor Moon's tiara changes shape, but Zoisite is shown as still alive and he escapes. Also in the manga, Sailor V and Tuxedo Mask, they do have a quick tussle, if you will, and Tuxedo Mask escapes. Sailor V reveals her name as Minako, and Minako explains that the Dark Kingdom is the enemy that they are fighting. She explains that the Dark Kingdom is what destroyed the Moon Kingdom, and that this enemy was sealed away until someone released it. When they met Sailor V in the manga, when they all shook hands, they started to remember more of their past. But in this episode, they're not showing that. This episode, it's Kunzite's turn to take on the scouts, and in the manga, he is commander of the Middle East. He gets into contact with Minako and tells her to bring the crystal to Tokyo Tower alone, or he will start taking out the humans. And then Kunzite takes the power out of the city. Now in the manga, the only thing that was accurate for this moment was the fact that he turned off the power. Sailor V arrives to take on Kunzite by herself. Sailor V urges Kunzite to remember who he is, but Queen Beryl interrupts him. Sailor Moon and the others arrive. In the manga, Kunzite's shield actually absorbs the attacks that the scouts throw at him, and it throws it right back at them, but twice as strong. And also in the manga, Sailor Moon actually at some point pushes the other scouts out of danger and tries to take on Kunzite by herself, but he outmatches her and Tuxedo Mask does come in and save her, and then we get that cute little kiss. And then when Kunzite attacks Sailor Moon, Tuxedo Mask jumps in front of the attack, shielding Sailor Moon. And then we go on to Act 9, Serenity, Princess. Tuxedo Mask remembers who he once was as Endymion, and this also triggered Sailor Moon to transform into the real Princess Serenity. She remembers her life with Endymion and how the war broke out and he even protected her back then. Her tears end up forming the silver crystal. The seal is broken, and now we're starting to see the true power of Princess Serenity and the crystal. You start to see flowers that were dead are starting to bloom, although in this moment they did not show just how powerful the crystal is in this episode. In the manga, you see sick children being healed from the power of the crystal, dead flowers are rejuvenating, and even the city's power comes back on. And in the manga, it actually shows as well the 4 kings of heavens that are dead, their bodies start to revive. Sailor Moon's power of rejuvenation is incredible, and I feel like this episode isn't showing that much of it. But then in this episode, we see some of the power disappears into Tuxedo Mask. Queen Beryl and Kunzite kidnap Tuxedo Mask and make their escape. Back in command, Sailor Venus revealed that she is the actual leader of the scouts. They realized that it was Queen Beryl who released Queen Metalia. Now here's where the anime is going to get different, because in the anime, Kunzite and the others, they're still alive, and we're shown them looking over Tuxedo Mask and they feel like they recognize him, but it isn't ringing a bell. And we see the horrifying nightmare that Usagi has of Tuxedo Mask being obliterated. And I will say in the manga, it was much darker detail showing him melting. That is what nightmares are made of. Now, I did personally like this touch that the anime did for this moment. When the girls come back to Usagi's house to check on her, and they open the door, and the anime showed her with her long hair and added that glow that Tuxedo Mask always described with their hair. He said it glowed like the moonlight. Also, we see more of the girls trying to help Usagi pull her back together. She's overwhelmed by the pressure of being the princess and doesn't know who she is, but then her friends tell her whoever she wants to be, and no matter what life she chooses, her friends will be there for her, whether she's the princess or she's Usagi, and I find that super sweet. And now we're on Act 10, Moon. The scouts are heading to the moon to learn about their past. This is when you insert the Anastasia soundtrack. When they head to the moon, Luna says that they're heading to Mars Serenitatis, which is the Sea of Serenity. I'm pretty sure I just butchered that name, but it is an actual location on the moon. When the girls get to the moon, they find a sword, and they're able to pull that sword out of that stone, and a projection of the former Queen Serenity appears. The former Queen Serenity's English voice is done by Wendy Lee, who is best known for Faye from Cowboy Bebop or Yoroichi from Bleach. Her Japanese voice was done by Mami Koyama, who is known for Big Mom in One Piece or Kaguya from Naruto Shippuden. It is explained that there was an alien creature that went down to Earth, and it took over the people with its evil powers. And Earth was not enough for this creature, so it commanded the people people to attack the Moon Kingdom. Queen Serenity was able to seal the alien away on Earth, but when she used the power of the crystal, the kingdom was turned to stone. And then the Earth was doomed and had to begin again. Now in the manga, it explains that Princess Serenity ended up taking her own life when Endymion died. And because of that, the queen was unable to eliminate the evil creature because of her sorrow for the loss of her daughter interfered. So the queen asked Sailor Moon to use the crystal to defeat the evil creature once and for all, and tells Sailor Moon that the crystal acts based off of Sailor Moon's feelings, and to not worry that Tuxedo Mask is still alive. And now we're at another difference, with the four kings of heaven are, for one, all still alive. In the manga, in the last chapter, it looked like Sailor Moon was bringing them back to life, but it looks like in the manga it didn't work, and Kunzite was the only one left. And in the manga, he's actually aware of who Endymion is. Now in the episode, the four of them are following Queen Beryl, and they're seeing Queen Metalia. And Nephri makes a comment that she looks like she almost has a physical body, which is the same for the manga, except it's Kunzite that's making the comment because he's the only one alive. Queen Beryl makes a comment about how they will succeed before the four kings remember who they are, and that triggers them all to remember who they are. They are Endymion's four knights. They were also reincarnated and were going to go find their prince, but instead they ended up crossing paths with Queen Beryl and she corrupted them. They try to fight her off, but she corrupts them once again. The four of them go back to Tokyo and now plan on freezing the planet to lure out the scouts, which is accurate to the manga on Kunzite's plan. The episode turns into the battle between the inner scouts and the four kings, and Venus reminds them all that they were in love at one point. Sailor Moon uses her power to heal the planet and try to heal the four kings, and then the inner scouts use their planet powers to attack the four kings, but they got away. In the manga, Sailor Moon actually tries to lure Kunzite away from the fight. Sailor Moon also wants to get information from Kunzite, but the other scouts combine their power to take out Kunzite. So by this point, all four kings are now dead in the manga. Queen Beryl awakens Tuxedo Mask, putting him now under her spell. And now we're on Act 11, Reunion, Endymion. What is sweet with this episode is Luna reminds Usagi that the two of them are partners, and Usagi has been going through a lot lately, and Luna is there for her to listen whenever she needs it. We see Tuxedo Mask, and he is corrupting the guys at the arcade trying to find Sailor Moon. I thought this was kind of interesting. They cut out moments from the manga when they're on their way to Ami's house for their meeting, but in this episode we see them just skip straight to Ami's house. The scouts start their meeting, and after a while Usagi eventually falls asleep. They let her continue sleeping, and they discuss that the sword actually has poison in it. Usagi eventually sneaks out to the arcade. Something was pulling her towards the arcade, and when she enters, she sees Mamoru. Luna is actually in the arcade watching all this happen and call the other girls. Now in the manga, Minako actually notices that someone is playing the Sailor V game and is doing really well with it. And she heads to the arcade but notices Usagi's gone. When they get to the arcade, they can see what they think is a fake Mamoru. And the next day, Usagi goes back to the arcade to see him again. He tries to seduce her to convince her to give away the command center. Turns out, he tried to brainwash her, but she got away. He was, however, able to brainwash Makoto. When Makoto tries to grab the crystal in the manga, Venus stops her, but in this episode, it was actually Mars. Not too big of a difference. This is the first time in the anime and manga we get to see Sailor Venus use her Love Me chain. Luna goes in at some point to save Usagi, but Mamoru ends up throwing her to the ground and hurting her. But seeing that, snaps Usagi out of it as she transforms into Sailor Moon. She tries to heal everyone with her powers, and Queen Beryl appears to take the crystal. And then starts Act 12, Enemy, Queen Metalia. So this episode starts off similar to the manga, but it does drift a little. Queen Beryl is fighting the scouts, and Sailor Venus remembers who Queen Beryl is. She's the woman that led the people of Earth to the Moon Kingdom and started the war with Queen Metalia, and she's actually the one who killed Prince Endymion. In the manga, we actually learn that in this flashback, we learn that Venus actually does kill Queen Beryl in the past, but Queen Beryl was brought back by Queen Metalia. We learn that in the past, Queen Beryl is actually jealous of Princess Serenity. Queen Beryl was in love with Prince Endymion, but he was already in love with Princess Serenity. During the fight in the manga, Venus summons the sword, but is struggling to lift it because it is so heavy. So Jupiter helps her and frees Sailor Moon from Queen Beryl's grasp. And that's when Venus will take the sword and she ends up killing Beryl. But in this episode, it is Venus that saves everyone, and then Sailor Moon picks up the sword and takes out Beryl. In the anime, Endymion takes the sword and the crystal, and when he makes his escape, Sailor Moon follows him. In the manga, he actually takes Venus with him after she used the sword. The scouts make it to what they call D Point, which is the enemy territory. But this time in the anime, the four kings of heaven are still alive. So now the inner scouts have to fight them, and while they're fighting each other, Sailor Moon is confronting Prince Endymion. Luna calls Sailor Moon and explains that the fragment of the crystal is inside Endymion, so she has to combine it with the rest of the crystal to make it complete again. This conversation in the manga happened back in the command, but it's a small thing. I will say though, I love that the anime emphasizes how much Usagi means to them all. They were all alone, and then they met her, and she touched all of their hearts and brought them all together. In a brief moment, the four kings remember their past lives, and the Sailor Scouts combine their power to help remind them on who they are. But sadly, Queen Metalia destroys them. Sailor Moon tried using her healing abilities to save Endymion, but it didn't work. Sailor Moon picks up the sword and goes in for the attack on Endymion. She strikes down Endymion and then takes her own life in the process, repeating the cycle. And then we're on Act 13, Final Battle, Reincarnation. Serenity and Endymion's souls, no matter how many times they are reincarnated, Usagi says they will find each other and continue to fall in love with each other. The silver crystal appears and then it grows, surrounding them. Queen Metalia absorbs the crystal, and then we see Luna try to save Usagi, and the poor girl, I feel for her. She feels like she failed both the queen and the princess. Luna and Artemis go to the moon to pray to the moon castle, and to beg the queen to use the remaining power to help save Usagi. The scouts make it to the Arctic Circle, but there's no ice anywhere. It looks like the ruins of the Moon Kingdom. When Queen Metalia makes an appearance, the scouts try to attack her, but all their attacks do is just make her stronger. All energy attacks make Queen Metalia stronger, and she continues to grow, engulfing the world. And then the people begin to attack each other. In the anime, we're getting a similar scene like we saw in the 90s movie Sailor Moon R. The inner scouts are remembering Usagi and how she brings light to their lives. They sense that Usagi is still alive, and they get back up and continue to fight. They know the crystal is protecting Usagi and is waiting for the opportunity to strike. So the scouts are making the ultimate sacrifice to give their princess an opportunity to attack. They sacrifice their pens, which is their guardian powers, which ultimately means that they're sacrificing their lives. And their sacrifice actually wakes up Usagi. It turns out that Tuxedo Mask's watch is what actually saved Usagi when she tried to stab herself. Sailor Moon uses the power of the crystal to free herself and Tuxedo Mask. It also brings Mamoru back to life to Usagi. In the manga, he is blind, but in the anime, he isn't, which I thought was an interesting choice to make. Usagi is trying to stop Queen Metalia with the crystal, but Usagi is losing faith in herself. She depends on her friends and wants her friends with her. Endymion sees Kunzite, and Kunzite explains that the star on Queen Metalia's forehead is her weakness, and the four kings are what actually protected Endymion from dying when Sailor Moon attacked him. Endymion reminds Sailor Moon who she is and that he will be right there with her fighting. Then we see the crystal transform and her new staff appears. And then we get to the final episode, and I'm going to throw out there, I do not speak French, so if I butcher this, I apologize. Act 14, Conclusion and Commencement, Petite, Etrangere, which means little stranger in French. Now in the internal manga, the title is an ending and a beginning, but still the same thing. Sailor Moon uses her new staff and crystal and begins her attack on Queen Metalia, but the attack is not working, but she begins to pray to the moon. She asks the moon for the last of its strength to defeat the queen, while Luna is also on the moon praying with Sailor Moon. The moon is shining like the crystal, and Queen Metalia tries to reach for that power, but the power is overwhelming, and with that, Sailor Moon uses that power to destroy Queen Metalia once and for all. Sadly though, Sailor Moon's brooch does get destroyed in the process, and Usagi collapses. We do see a glimpse of Luna in her human form, but then we see the Moon Kingdom is being restored. When Usagi used the power of the crystal, she was also reviving the Silver Millennium Kingdom. Sailor Moon's life though is fading, but Tuxedo Mask kisses her and she comes back, which this is also similar to Sailor Moon R, the movie. Luna reaches out to Usagi to come back to the moon. If she comes to the moon, she can save everyone, but her brooch is broken and she can't transform. But she still has a silver crystal, and she uses that to get to the moon. Once she arrives, she sees that the kingdom has been restored. Luna explains that Usagi is now Queen Serenity and will rule over this kingdom, but Usagi says she'll be going back to Earth. Her life belongs on Earth with her friends and family, and the former queen is glad that she made that decision and provides her with a new brooch. She puts the crystal in the new brooch and transforms once again. She uses the crystal to revive everyone and restores the planet as well. Her power is incredible. The rest of the scouts wake up and Sailor Moon reunites with them all. The scouts said they will not go down that easily, and they swear they will protect their princess, always. Then just like in the manga, we see Rei has a vision of what's to come, and while Mamoru and Usagi are together, a rip in the sky appears and a little girl falls from the sky. This little girl claims to be Usagi, and her and Usagi start to argue, but then the little girl pulls out a gun on Usagi and says, if you're Usagi, then hand over the silver crystal, or she will shoot. And with that, that is the end of season 1 of Sailor Moon Crystal. Overall, this show did do a great job of keeping true to the manga. There were some changes that were made that, in my opinion, made sense, and I thought some of them were not major changes. Some of the battles were different. The manga had very short fights, which is to be expected. They do have to make 25 minutes worth of material for each episode. I did enjoy the changes of learning about how the Sailor Scouts' relationship with the 4 Knights of Heaven. That was sweet to also see them at some point. They had loved ones as well. It was a little cliche, but I do like it. I do wish they had shown more of the power that Sailor Moon has. And the anime, I felt like it was a small thing that could be missed. Now to talk about the animation, someone named Stefanos6128 shared that Munehisa Sakai, the first director, states in an interview that there were angles that they wanted to do with the transformation, and they felt that 2D animation wouldn't be enough to achieve that. And he did also have a big vision for it. I was not able to find more on this interview, but I also know that they had a short time frame, and even the 2D animation was rushed, which is also why they did the bi-weekly schedule when this show came out originally. From what it sounds like, there was production issues that had arisen during the creation of this season and season 2. It's unfortunate to hear that, but overall, the season was great. I didn't mind the 3D animation, and I always recommend for people to watch Sailor Moon Crystal. Also, the first season, known as the Dark Kingdom arc in the original series, was 46 episodes, whereas Crystal is now, it's only 14. So I imagine most people who grew up with Sailor Moon, who get busy with their day-to-day lives like myself, I can appreciate the fact that the episode list is shorter. Also, in making this video, the original Japanese voice actress for Sailor Jupiter back in the 90s, Emi Shinohara, has sadly passed away. May she rest in peace, and I will always be grateful for the work that she did. With that though, I have covered the differences between the anime and the manga of Sailor Moon Crystal's first season. I hope you all enjoyed this, as I plan to continue to make these videos for the rest of Sailor Moon Crystal. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments on this series, and if I missed anything. Thank you for the continued support, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.